Hey everyone, I got a lot of great questions on Twitter and on Curious Cat for this video, and I'm really looking forward to answering all of them. First up, why did you decide to make your channel? I wish I had a better answer than this, but I got tired of seeing my recommendations page be polluted by these dreadful reactionary channels and the content they just seem to spew out on a daily basis. All of it is just so bad and so poorly researched and so poorly argued, but I would see their numbers just increase. For every channel I clicked ignore, it seemed 3 or 4 more would pop up, and any subject I wanted to learn more about, I simply could not do that on YouTube. Thankfully, there are lots of great ways to learn about stuff. When I thought about all the young minds on YouTube that are being indoctrinated into this toxic reactionary mindset, I couldn't help but want to try and change things, or at least provide an alternative, hopefully argued and evidenced and presented in a way that's compelling. And while there are a lot of great lefty YouTubers out there, we are still sorely outnumbered by voices on the right and pseudo-center. In the beginning, I told myself this would be a hobby that would sharpen my research and fact-checking skills. To my surprise, I also seem to be growing an audience, which is kind of neat. So I think I'm going to keep doing it for a while. Okay, next question. Who are some of my favorite lefty YouTubers? This is tough. I think I've enjoyed a video by pretty much every lefty YouTuber at some point. There's usually something there that I've either not known or a perspective I had never considered. So it's very difficult to choose a favorite. I would say look at the channels I subscribe to, and you'll get a good sense of who some of my favorites are. Looking down the list at random, I enjoy videos from Creationist Cat and Yana, Mexi, Dralasta, Eric Taxon, Sean, Claudia Brown. Really, there are so many people here that you should all check out. Alright, next question. Hi Jose. Hi. I would like to ask, were you at one point, like myself, ever convinced by the skeptics on YouTube? If so, what attracted you to their content? And regardless if you ever were, how did you learn that their content was erroneous and fallacious? Thank you for your content and congratulations on reaching 1K. Thank you for that comment right at the end. But was I ever convinced by the so-called skeptics? So here I'm going to feel a little arrogant, but no, I was actually never really convinced by any of the skeptics, at least not in their current anti-left incarnation. The only one even close to that sphere that I was a regular subscriber of was Thunderfoot, and when he started railing against feminism, I kind of hopped off the train. It wasn't so much that I was some brilliant, enlightened person who just saw through all the bullshit. It was more like I actually took the idea of being skeptical seriously, ironically enough. I remember when Gamergate broke out. Everyone was a flutter, and never let anyone tell you that that movement began as some sort of ethics in journalism crusade. It began with the just brutal and quite savage mob that formed going after Zoe Quinn. And it was all on the basis of this blog written by her ex-boyfriend. And I remember seeing that as the source for all the outrage and thinking, why would someone take the blog of an ex-boyfriend seriously? Why would someone start a campaign to harass a woman based on what her ex-boyfriend says? So right at the beginning, something stunk. Not that this is when the anti-feminist rhetoric started, of course. It predates that by many months of just anger at Anita Sarkeesian and her videos about video games. That said, things went to a whole other place when Gamergate started, and things started getting very nasty very quickly. And suddenly all these channels started popping up on YouTube, and a few that I recognized were changing formats, basically going after the social justice warriors. And as someone who always respected social justice and never thought of it as a dirty word, I just could not get on board with that train, and thankfully never did. That said, I think a lot of it has to do with my age. I'm a little older than people would probably expect, and if I had been, say, 4 or 5 years younger, when I was more impressionable and more susceptible to people who say things that sound like they could be true, I might have been more easily convinced to go along with it. I might have not stopped and said, hey, how do we know this is true? Looked into it myself and then realized it was all bullshit. I think that's a skill people learn with time, and I'm already kind of sneaking into your next question and about how we can learn that their content is erroneous and fallacious. Often just reading the original source will tell you everything you need to know, and more specifically, tell you what the people making videos on YouTube will not tell you, usually something that completely undermines their ridiculous reactionary position. Alright, moving to the next question. What's your favorite book and why? Oh god, this is maybe the toughest question. I have several bookshelves all around me, and looking over my shoulder and looking for something that stands out, my favorite book of the moment, not all time, would have to be Vladimir Nabokov's Pale Fire. For those who may not be too familiar with Nabokov, he's perhaps most famous for writing Lolita, which is also a brilliant book in its own right, but Pale Fire sticks in my mind a bit more clearly. One of the cool things about it is that it's almost like an artifact that's been taken from a fictional world. It's an epic poem with commentary notes that make up the majority of the book, and as you read them, you see the very strange relationship the critic has with this poet, this almost obsessive and quite frankly destructive attachment he has. And what Pale Fire does is illustrate the very strange relationship that artists often have with critics. I absolutely recommend this book. Next question. Is it anti-Semitic to ban circumcision? I'm going to go ahead and assume this means male circumcision, of course. And to this, I will answer no. It is not anti-Semitic to ban circumcision. For one, circumcision is not practiced exclusively by Jewish people. Also, when it comes to religious rights and freedoms, I tend to put religious rights lower than the right to bodily autonomy. Circumcision is an elective surgery, and if someone were to choose to do it, I would absolutely support them, so long as they are adults capable of making that decision. As someone who strongly believes in a secular society, I support anyone's right to practice whatever religion they choose to, but that right to practice the religion ends when it starts having a negative effect on a non-willing participant. And I think a baby can't reasonably consent to anything. Next question. I assume you're from TO. Yes, I am. Are you active in any local political groups? And if so, how would you recommend people get involved? At the moment, I am not involved in any local political groups. I have been in the past, so maybe I can give you some advice there. I would say look for a cause you're very passionate about. Very rarely will you find a group that's claiming it will completely reinvent society. There are a few out there. Maybe if that's your jam, you should look into that. But especially if you don't have much experience with political groups, look for something you know something about, or at least you know you have a lot of passion towards and are willing to learn about. And there are a lot of different groups on Facebook and other social media platforms, and they usually host free meetings and meetups and gatherings. Look into any group before you jump in. Make sure there are no weird things being posted, either from their official social media accounts or on their social media pages. And remember, when you go to a meeting, you aren't a full-fledged member. You can shop around and find a place, see where you fit in. Next question. What are some of your favorite albums? I am so not cool in that I don't have many albums. I do listen to a lot of different music, but I don't often listen to albums from start to finish. I'll usually find a few songs I like and hit those on repeat, and the rest of the album sadly fades away. I will give you a kind of answer and say that one album I listened to recently that I really enjoyed was Kyle's Light of Mine. I wasn't really familiar with Kyle. I knew he had that single with Lil Yachty, I Spy, which is pretty good, but I really don't like Lil Yachty, so I only about half enjoyed it. But when I listened to that album, I was just like, whoa. I'm not a huge hip-hop fan, but Kyle's unrelenting positivity was completely infectious. Next question. Would you be interested in hosting or participating in live streams with other YouTube leftists? If so, who are the creators you'd most want to stream with? I am down to live stream with anyone. Literally anyone. I have never done it. I don't know how it'll turn out, but I don't know if I'd be a great host. I have hosted various panel discussions and such in the past, but live streams are a bit different. They seem a bit more chill than some of the things I've hosted in real life in the past, so I might want to be in a few before I host anything at the moment. As for the creators I'd most want to stream with, honestly, anyone I can have good chemistry with is probably going to be a good live stream. I'd kind of want it to be someone I don't agree with on every single issue, otherwise it'll just be us high-fiving each other for however long it is. Okay, the next question. What do you currently work as, and are you planning to maybe turn your channel into a career someday? I am going to skip the first part of that question to retain what little anonymity I have left. And as for making this channel a career, I've never really considered that as too likely. I've seen channels that are much bigger than mine that don't quite make enough to make it a career. But if my channel did blow up in that way, I would consider it. I have thought about opening a Patreon, but I would rather see some demand for that first. I think a big part of why I don't want to start making money off of this is right now this is a hobby. I don't have to worry about profiting or some sort of bottom line at the end of the day, so I can produce something in my time as I like when I feel like it. And I think the work reflects a comfort with that, rather than having to work to a deadline. Also, another reason I probably wouldn't be good as a career YouTuber is that I'm very bad at promoting my work. My Twitter account's not as active as it probably should be, and as for sharing links to my videos, I never do that. So I also want to thank anyone who's ever done that. If you've shared a link to one of my videos anywhere, you are doing the work that I should be doing, and I am extremely thankful. Part of the reason why is because I'm a bit bashful when it comes to my own work, but also as someone who has a full-time job, when I work on the channel, I kind of want to be working on a video. That's where I want to donate all my time. So instead of spending time promoting myself on Twitter, I could just be working on my video. Maybe that's not the best strategy, but it's what I've been doing for now. What kind of music do you listen to? I listen to all the music, from classical to whatever is pop right now. Actually, probably not pop right now, or I don't know what's popular. My philosophy is if I hear something I like, I will listen to it. What I'm currently listening to, well, I already mentioned Kyle, so check out his stuff. I've really picked up on Namawi. I don't know if anyone's heard of him. He is a Malaysian YouTube star, I guess you would call him that. He has a lot of great songs, probably most famous for Tokyo Bond, but his best song, in my opinion, is Thai Cha Cha, which he sings with Bai the Ska. I don't know how to say his name. He's a Thai singer. Also, Pop Pop Pa is a great song, and genuinely funny. Watch the music video. It's actually pretty funny by the end. I am an unrepentant and unapologetic Bon Jovi fan. The origins of that story involve me and some friends ironically enjoying Bon Jovi and then gradually over time becoming genuine Bon Jovi fans. It's kind of weird. It's kind of scary. Remember, kids, when you pretend to be something, you might actually turn into it in the future. I'm just really glad that I pretended to be a Bon Jovi fan instead of pretending to be a Nazi, because it's way less embarrassing to sing along to Wanted Dead or Alive than to recite the 14 words. Next question. What do you think the most dangerous reactionary channel on YouTube is? I have no idea. This is such a hard question. Any reactionary channel that poses as a centrist channel. They use that guise to create this air of respectability, as if they are some careful, rational person weighing both sides of an issue. And you can tell they really weigh the issues because they look at both sides, and sometimes they side on the left and sometimes they side on the right. Or at least that's what they will tell you. But if you look at their videos, you see the vast majority of them is siding with the right. While if you see me making a video about someone like Dave Rubin, you'll get an example of the people and the voices and the channels that I think are most dangerous on the reactionary space on YouTube. Next question. Are you daddy or soyboy? Yes. Next and final question. Actually, this is 2 for 1. Hablas Español? Actually, I don't. My French is better than my Spanish right now, believe it or not. This is what happens when you live in Canada. But a more serious question. It would be interesting if you explained your experience with the Canadian social democracy, if this is the right term for your government, for all of us American viewers. Canada is actually a constitutional monarchy. That is right. We still have a queen here. And yes, it is Queen Elizabeth II. She is technically the head of the state in Canada. Over here she's represented by the Governor General, who of course is Julie Payette. The Governor General of Canada, generally speaking, is more a ceremonial position, and all the real power rests in the Prime Minister. We have a parliamentary system here. To be honest, as a Canadian, it's very strange living next to the United States. We look at you guys and this wild circus is going on down there. And we have some drama up here too. In fact, I live in the city where we had a mayor who quite famously smoked crack. But generally speaking, Canadian politics just kind of hums along. It works for better or worse. A party may huff and puff, but it's not quite as divisive as it is down there. So you'll see a lot more inter-party cooperation. And while that might sound good to American ears, sometimes the parties align to really represent the interests of the rich. It happens here, it happens everywhere. It's what happens when you have a system that can be easily influenced by people with financial interests. There's not a whole lot to be optimistic about. We have just elected a premier that is sort of like the governor of our province. And he's already starting to cut a lot of important social programs. He's a pretty bad dude. On the federal level, I noticed a lot of Americans tend to fawn over Justin Trudeau as this strong voice from the left, or in some cases, really tear him to pieces for being some radical leftist. He's really just kind of a center-left dude. For every good thing he's done, such as bringing in Syrian refugees into the country, there are broken promises like electoral reform that never came, and he may do something like start talking tough with Saudi Arabia. He still won't actually cancel the arms deals, weapons that are being used to slaughter people in Yemen. So he's a mixed bag to be sure. So those are all the questions I got. Thank you again to everyone who submitted those questions through Twitter and Curious Cat. I am going to leave the Curious Cat open, and I will leave links to it at the end of my videos now, and a link to it on my Twitter profile. If you have any other questions, shoot them on there and I will reply to them eventually. As for my next video, it is going very slowly. I don't know when it's going to be done. And that project might have to get split in two. We'll see. Anyway, I hope people keep watching, and thank you to everyone who subscribed. It really means a lot to me, and I hope you enjoy my videos in the future.